The scene at the final whistle was intensely charged. Antony, once Manchester United's glittering new star, sat on the Wrocław turf with tears streaming down his face. Around him, Chelsea players celebrated wildly under the stadium lights, clutching the UEFA Conference League trophy. Jadon Sancho, another former Manchester United hopeful and now a Chelsea loanee, was also caught in an emotional wave, but his tears were those of relief and redemption. Both players, once hailed as the future of English and world football, now stand at a crossroads so expensive, so complex, that it could reshape the transfer strategies of Europe's biggest clubs. And the outcome? It's anyone's guess. How did two of the world's most talked about talents become symbols of football's broken promises and brutal business realities? And perhaps even more importantly, what will happen next as the financial and sporting stakes explode? To understand this drama, we need to rewind the clock. Picture Manchester United in 2021, desperate for a right winger to inject pace and creativity into the squad. Enter Jadon Sancho, plucked from Borussia Dortmund in a blockbuster $73 million deal. Hailed as the solution to United's attacking woes, he arrived amid fanfare and sky-high expectations. Weeks later, the anticipation only grew. The Premier League was supposed to be his playground, a stage for greatness. Fast forward just a year. United's next answer is another huge swing. Antony, the Brazilian sensation from Ajax, brought in for a fee that, when the dust settled, topped £82 million. The price tag raised eyebrows, but the hope was unmissable. These two were to be the cornerstones of a new, golden era. But elite football is a ruthless business. Sancho struggled to adjust. Injuries, dips in form, and questions about attitude, voiced both in whispers and by pundits on live TV, clouded his performances. Antony, meanwhile, dazzled in flashes but never delivered the consistency United so desperately needed. For their parent club, these weren't just footballing disappointments. They were financial quagmires, tying up massive sums in transfer fees and wage commitments. According to Simon Stone of the BBC, Manchester United are likely to undergo a major squad overhaul this summer, and it is hard to see where Antony fits into those plans, especially with a new manager potentially coming in. But before we dig deeper into where it's gone wrong, let's recognize the scale of what is at stake. Jadon Sancho and Antony represent a combined outlay of around £150 million in transfer fees alone, a sum that would stagger most clubs, and even for United, constitutes a huge gamble. Their salaries, each reportedly exceeding £200,000 a week, add tens of millions more to the club's financial exposure. This isn't just a story about two players. It's about economic risk, managerial vision, and the relentless pressure of expectation that only the Premier League can produce. When clubs wager huge sums on young stars, they're not just buying talent. They're buying hope, headlines, and the promise of future revenues through success on the pitch. When it fails, the fallout is enormous. Fans grow restless, managers lose jobs, and financial chiefs scramble to limit the damage. Here's the part that stings. Neither Sancho nor Antony have come close to justifying those staggering numbers. For Sancho, the statistics are brutal. In 3 seasons, only 12 goals and 5 assists for United. For Antony, a similar story, though his loan at Betis this season saw him recapture some form, 9 goals, 5 assists. His Old Trafford tally remains underwhelming. Gary Neville, United legend and outspoken Sky Sports pundit, put it succinctly: United's recruitment has been poor, and Sancho and Antony are prime examples. They need to cut their losses and rebuild with players who fit the system. And now, the futures of both stars hang in the balance, caught between the ambitions of their parent club, the financial realities of the transfer market, and their own desires for regular football and, for Antony, Champions League nights under the lights. Let's break down what happens next, starting with Jadon Sancho. His current situation is as complicated as it is precarious. Shipped out on loan to Chelsea after a turbulent spell at United, he's found some grace in London, helping the Blues to European silverware in Wrocław. But does Chelsea want him permanently? The answer isn't so straightforward. Chelsea, once the Premier League's most free-spending club, are now under enormous financial pressure. The $73 million fee United paid has all but evaporated. Sancho's value has crashed to around £35 million, less than half of what United invested. Chelsea are reportedly considering extending his loan with an option to buy in 2026, but they could easily walk away if his wages, consistency, or attitude don't align with the new manager's plans. For Sancho, the sense of uncertainty is palpable. Roy Keane, never one to pull punches, recently told ITV, Sancho has talent, but his attitude and consistency are question marks. Chelsea needs to decide if he fits their long-term plans. Meanwhile, the Manchester United boardroom is in turmoil. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the new main investor, is personally reviewing all big-money transfer decisions, including the futures of both Sancho and Antony. Rumors swirl about Sancho's next move. Could he return to United and fight for his place? The arrival of a new manager, Ruben Amorim, might offer a fresh start. Or could a loan to a mid-table Premier League club be a lifeline, giving him minutes and a shot at rebuilding his reputation? There's even talk of offers from Saudi Arabia, clubs willing to spend big and lure star names with lucrative deals. The stakes for Sancho couldn't be higher. If he fails to secure a permanent move or a revival in form, his trajectory could mirror that of countless other wonder kids whose promise fizzled on the harsh stage of top-level football. But if Sancho's future is a puzzle, Antony's is a labyrinth. His loan spell at Real Betis has been a personal renaissance. 9 goals and 5 assists in 26 appearances, a far cry from the paltry numbers at Old Trafford. Betis boss Manuel Pellegrini is reportedly desperate to keep him, and sporting director Antonio Cordon confirmed, "We are very happy with Antony's contribution. We will explore all options to keep him, but financial realities must be considered." Here's the catch. Betis, unlike the Premier League's financial superpowers, are strapped for cash. Even if Antony wants to stay, it would require either a massive price cut from United or another loan with United subsidizing much of his wages. The market for him elsewhere is limited. Few clubs are interested in paying a premium for a player still searching for consistency at the very top. And then there's Antony's ambition. He craves Champions League football, a stage Betis cannot offer unless they overachieve domestically. Would he return to United, hopeful that Amorim's new tactics open a spot for him on the right wing? Or will his agent seek more exotic destinations where admiration for his Brazilian flair is high and wages are even higher? Financial analyst at the Football Finance Group explains, Antony's high transfer fee and wages make him difficult to move unless United accepts a significant loss. A loan with a wage subsidy is the most realistic scenario. With all eyes on Old Trafford, United must decide if they can stomach massive financial losses to clear these players from the wage bill, or if clever negotiating can salvage some value. The club's latest scouting, reportedly monitoring Moussa Diaby of Bayer Leverkusen, suggests a willingness to move on, but doing so means admitting that nearly £150 million was, in effect, spent in vain, a public admission of failure that neither the board nor fans will take lightly. These club decisions are being made in the shadow of a huge European summer. Chelsea's own finances are tight, with agents for stars like Enzo Fernandez sounding out Italian giants, and the pressure is on to balance the books. Real Betis, meanwhile, would need a financial miracle to buy Antony outright. Saudi Arabian clubs loom in the background, fat checkbooks at the ready, potentially tempting both Sancho and United with deals that would save face and, crucially, cash. As all this plays out, both Sancho and Antony remain in limbo, waiting for phone calls that will shape their next chapter. Their stories are cautionary tales, but also possible blueprints for redemption if their next moves are handled correctly. Imagine the tension. 2 of the world's top young footballers, each with everything to prove, but held back by price tags that now threaten to suffocate their careers. What happens if no club is willing to take the risk? What if United refuse to discount? Is there a way for Sancho or Antony to break the cycle and rediscover their best on a new stage? Or will they be remembered as the most expensive cautionary tales in Manchester United's modern era? The answers to these questions may reshape United's transfer strategy, challenge Chelsea and Betis's ambitions, and influence how major clubs approach player recruitment for years to come. But as the footballing world looks to the summer transfer window, one thing is clear. The stakes have never been higher for Sancho, Antony, or the clubs gambling on their potential. So, what will happen as the clock ticks towards another transfer window? Will United finally cut their losses, or dig in and gamble on a turnaround? Will Chelsea, and perhaps Betis, double down, or walk away from these high-profile projects? And crucially, what comes next for 2 of the most expensive, enigmatic footballers of a generation? The world is watching, and the next move could change everything. The summer transfer window looms like a storm on the horizon, swirling with speculation and uncertainty for both Jadon Sancho and Antony. What happens next will not only redefine 2 expensive careers, but also serve as a crossroads for Manchester United, Chelsea, Real Betis, and even the ambitions of entire leagues, Premier League, La Liga, and beyond. Let's follow the threads into the future. For Sancho, the glint of a European trophy with Chelsea brings a bittersweet sense of validation. Lifting silverware is what every top signing dreams of, yet his personal revival remains unfinished. Chelsea faces a classic dilemma: press ahead with the $35 million option to buy, negotiate another loan, or send him back to Manchester United. The club's own financial pressures are mounting. Just as Enzo Fernandez's camp tests the waters for a possible Italian move, Chelsea must weigh whether Sancho's flashes of brilliance justify a long-term investment. They know that, as Roy Keane bluntly put it, Sancho has talent, but his attitude and consistency are question marks. Meanwhile, at United, Sancho's return is far from guaranteed. His relationship with the club soured after last year's well-publicized falling out with then-manager Erik ten Hag. New management under Ruben Amorim, tipped for tactical overhaul, could change everything or nothing. Amorim is known for demanding relentless pressing and unity on the pitch. Would Sancho's style fit? If Chelsea says no and Amorim doesn't want him, Sancho could be left searching for a new home yet again. With his market value less than half what United paid, the Red Devils face the prospect of a steep financial hit, unless a surprise suitor, perhaps from the Bundesliga or even Saudi Arabia, steps in with a bold offer. Antony's path is equally tangled. The Brazilian winger rediscovered his confidence in Spain, providing 9 goals and 5 assists in a single season, but his heartbreak after the Conference League final said it all. Success at Betis doesn't automatically guarantee a future there. The club adores his energy, but Spanish finances are tight. Manchester United, wary of repeating past mistakes, may be forced into an uncomfortable compromise, a heavily subsidized loan, or a fire sale transfer at a massive loss. This is, as a Football Finance Group analyst says, the most realistic scenario. The idea of both players returning to United sparks anxiety among fans. The club wants to rebuild. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is personally reviewing every high-profile contract, and new names, like Bayer Leverkusen's Moussa Diaby, circulate as possible replacements. Gary Neville's damning verdict on United's recruitment, Sancho and Antony are prime examples. They need to cut their losses and rebuild. Echoes through boardrooms and fan forums alike. But what if things don't go to plan? There is a genuine risk both players will slide into football limbo. Sancho, approaching the peak of his career, could find himself shunted between loans, never finding a true footballing home. Antony, at 24, may feel he deserves Champions League football, but may have to accept another year in Seville or take a step down to secure game time. In both cases, the pressure is immense. Wages are high, expectations even higher, and each failed move chips away at their reputation and value. Yet the flip side remains tantalizing. Football careers can turn on a single season or a coach's trust. Manuel Veth notes that a loan extension for Sancho at Chelsea makes sense if Maresca sees him as part of his plans. Otherwise, a move to the Bundesliga could revitalize his career. Imagine, for instance, if Chelsea's new boss Enzo Maresca bets big on Sancho, offering him a defined role and consistent minutes. A run of good form in the autumn could blaze a path to redemption. The same goes for Antony. If Betis and United strike a deal, or if a tactical shift at United gives him a new lease on life, suddenly the Brazilian's tears could be swapped for triumph. There are dark horses, too. With Saudi Arabian clubs circling, the prospect of a lucrative move, where wages can exceed even Premier League levels, is real for Sancho. It would be a career-altering pivot, and perhaps a way for him to rebuild confidence out of the hyper-scrutiny of English football. For Antony, a different European league is still possible. Serie A or Bundesliga sides, though unlikely to match his United wages, could offer the platform needed for a renaissance. What makes this saga so fascinating is the interplay between money, ego, and footballing philosophy. In a world where one transfer can wreck a club's wage structure or transform a season, every decision is loaded. United's new leadership under Ratcliffe signals a more ruthless, business-like approach than the past decade. The club will not be held to ransom, by agents, by player wages, or by the ghosts of past recruitment errors. But are they ready to write off $100 million in losses just for a fresh start? That's the gamble. For clubs like Chelsea and Betis, the lesson is equally stark. Short-term fixes, loan deals for big names out of form, can provide thrills and even trophies, but can also backfire if the player doesn't integrate or if the financial math doesn't add up. The specter of financial fair play hovers over every Premier League decision. As one financial expert noted, for every Sancho and Antony, there are a dozen clubs who pay the price for being too ambitious. Fans, too, play a crucial role. Social media can amplify a player's highs and lows, affecting their confidence and even club decisions. When Antony broke down at the final whistle, the images went viral, sparking sympathy but also harsh criticism. So much of a modern player's fate depends not just on performances, but on perception, morale, and the endless churn of rumor and expectation. But what practical lessons can be drawn for football followers and for anyone observing high-stakes decision-making? First, the perils of short-termism. Clubs that buy for marketing or hype without a clear tactical fit often live to regret it. United's spending spree under previous regimes, driven more by star power than by system, has left them with an expensive, mismatched squad. The message for directors, and for fans, could not be clearer. Strategy beats stardom. If a player doesn't align with the coach's plan and the club's culture, even a $70 million price tag won't guarantee success. Second, the value of patience and the power of environment. Antony's improvement at Betis was not just about escaping Old Trafford, but about finding a manager and system that believed in him. The right coach can unlock potential that appeared lost. For fans, it's a reminder to look past the headlines. A player's worth is often as much about context as about raw talent. Third, adaptability is everything. Sancho's future may depend on his willingness to change, whether that means adjusting his attitude, accepting a different role, or even making the leap to a new league or continent. In football, as in life, careers rarely go in straight lines. The ability to rebound from setbacks, to learn and reinvent, is a trait shared by true greats. And finally, the influence of management and leadership. With Sir Jim Ratcliffe now at the helm, Manchester United's approach is set to shift. His hands-on scrutiny, personally reviewing transfer dossiers, consulting with tactical analysts, and even meeting player agents, reflects a club desperate to avoid repeating costly mistakes. For Chelsea, the same logic applies. Every manager is now under pressure to prove that signings make sporting and financial sense. So, the central intrigue: will Sancho and Antony revive their careers, or will they become cautionary tales? After reviewing all the evidence, the financial constraints, the managerial changes, and the unpredictable transfer market, the answer is both straightforward and elusive. If one or both players finds a club that believes in their abilities and gives them a platform to play, redemption is possible. If not, they risk sinking into the growing pile of what could have been stories that haunt football's expensive history. Sancho, with a medal in his pocket and still only 24, has options: Premier League, Saudi riches, or a Bundesliga return. Antony, his confidence restored in Spain, can either push for another year at Betis or hope for a tactical renaissance at United. The summer window will provide a reckoning, and careers will be made or broken depending on decisions in boardrooms and the faith of coaches. For the fans, the lesson is to temper expectations with empathy and realism. Behind the price tags and social media storms are young men grappling with immense pressures, trying to fulfill potential in a ruthless, ever-shifting industry. And as a secret fact few outside inner circles know, one of the reasons United are considering such drastic squad changes is a clause in their recent sponsorship negotiations. Any player with a net negative impact on global brand engagement, measured by social sentiment and merchandise sales, may be prioritized for transfer. In other words, off-pitch noise is now as important as on-pitch performance at the very top level. So as the summer unfolds, keep one eye on the breaking news. But remember, the forces at play are deeper than transfer fees or highlight reels. Careers, clubs, and currencies are all intertwined, and the sagas of Sancho and Antony are far from over. What do you think? Will either player reclaim the heights that made them such expensive prospects? Or is this the last chapter before football moves on without them? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget